Guys, it's Chelsea, and today I'm going to be doing a comparison between the Wet n Wild Bare Necessities palette and the e.l.f. Nude palette. As you can tell, they're very, very similar palettes, but one does have a lot more pigmentation. If you want to find out which one has more pigmentation is worth your money, then keep on watching. Okay, these two, the first two shades, I'm not even going to swatch because they're just simple white shades. We all know what white looks like, so I'm not even going to swatch them. But the two shades that I'm going to swatch is this first color and this color. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Wet n Wild palette. And this is a very, very pretty pink. Now I'm going to go into the e.l.f. Now, these are not very similar shades. These ones aren't. If you ask me, the Wet n Wild has a little bit more pigmentation than the actual e.l.f. palette. The Wet n Wild one has more pinky tones in it, but they are both very pretty. You're not going to get a lot of pigmentation from a lot of drugstore palettes, especially e.l.f. and Wet n Wild, because they're really, really cheap. So you can expect a lot, but for the price, they're really worth your money. And now I'm going to go into the similar shades in the e.l.f. and Bare Necessity Wet n Wild palette. These two, in my opinion, are very, very similar in color and a lot similar. Okay, this is the e.l.f. one and this is the Wet n Wild one. I think they have a lot of same similarities to them both, except this one, the Wet n Wild one, has a little bit more pigmentation compared to the e.l.f. one. But they are very pretty, and as you can see, the Wet n Wild one has a lot more metallic in it. That's what I like compared to something like e.l.f. But if you're not one of those that doesn't like big metallic things, you're not gonna like the Wet n Wild one, because they do have more of a selection of metallics and shimmers in it, compared to the the e.l.f. one. But otherwise, they are very pretty. Now, there's another similar shade in here, and then I think I'm going to be done swatching these, and then I will show you the price points and how many shades and everything are in here, and which ones I think is actually worth your money. Okay, I'm going to go into this shade from Wet n Wild. And this shade from the e.l.f. palette. Now, they're not really similar in color, but they're close. They're the closest that you're gonna get. This is the Wet n Wild, and this is the e.l.f. They're both very pretty. It's hard to tell which one between this one. Again, this one's more shimmery, and this one still has, it's still matte, but it's still shimmery at the same time. This one has more metallicness in it, but it is still a very, very pretty shade. Honestly, the price points between both of them are very, very similar. I think the Wet n Wild one was like $2 or $3, maybe $3 or $4. It really just depends on where you live. And the e.l.f. one, I believe, was $6 to $7 or $7 to $8, depends where you live. So this one is a little bit more cheaper, and this one is a little bit more expensive, but it's still in the drugstore section. Okay, now let's compare how many shadows are actually in each palette, and the packaging, and the price points, and see the blendability and all that different stuff. Because if you're going to get a palette, you want to make sure that it's, you know, in good shape and everything. Okay, the Wet n Wild has... The Wet n Wild one has 10 shadows. And so does the e.l.f. So, they have the same shade, the same shadows, of the number of shadows. So that's really good. The mirrors are really good. The e.l.f. one has a mirror in it, but the Wet n Wild one doesn't. So that's a downgrade, because you always want to have a mirror, but at the same time, if the palette is great, and then you can just pretty much buy a mirror from anywhere, actually, so doesn't matter. The bendability on both of them is really, really good. You can't expect a lot from a lot of drugstore palettes, but if you ask me, e.l.f. and Wet n Wild are actually beating L'Oreal and CoverGirl and Revlon and all of them that are way more expensive. These are a lot more cheaper than they all are. For a palette like this, you're going to pay usually between 11 to 12 or 13 bucks for shitty quality. But this is actually really, really good quality for as cheap as it is. So if you're looking for a palette that you're really going to like, I would go with the Wet n Wild All Natural Bare Necessities palette. Not only because it's cheaper, but it has more metallics in it for what I like. They have things on the back where you can follow, so if you're a new beginner in makeup, this is something really good that you can look at. It has Naked Eye, the Smoked Out, the Golden Goddess, and the Wildcat, so you could try any of these shades, and it also has the numbers and everything of the shadows and everything of where you're supposed to place it and everything. So this is a good beginner if you're a good beginner guide if you really want to start playing around with stuff like this. And this palette is actually a good thing to start off with if you're also a beginner. I'm still a beginner in makeup, and I really do love these, but I'm improving. And again, I'm only 14, so but these are some really good quality shadows, and so is the e.l.f., don't get me wrong. But I just think for the price of the Wet n Wild one and the blendability and just the beginner's guide in the back, this would be my thought. But if you want, you can just go ahead and get both eyeshadow palettes, because they are really, really good. Both of them are. I really recommend them. I believe on my second palette in this one, and I'm getting ready to get on my second palette. I think this is my sister's palette, so yeah. But I'm really excited, and I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, you can give me a huge thumbs up and subscribe.